I just watched the 1984 movie Macross. Do You Remember Love? This was a request from Jay. It's an anime movie, and this movie has a little bit of everything. It's kind of crazy. And I wonder how much this inspired modern anime stuff, or at least, 90s, early 2000s anime. It's got a love triangle, it's got aliens, space fights, enough songs that I would say it classifies as a musical, a minor amount of fan service, men smacking women in the face, a pretty interesting message that's pretty blatant, and I don't know how relevant it was at the time, or maybe still be. I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about Japanese culture, and certainly not from over 40 years ago. So it's got pretty much everything that you could fit in or want in an anime movie. I did watch the first 3 episodes of the show, and tonally, this one does a lot more around sexism. It's quite a bit more sci-fi. I don't know if the show eventually gets into this, since I only watched the first couple episodes, and it's got 36. But this doesn't seem to be directly tied in, and I am interested in the original series if I can find the time to watch it. Just to give a quick plot synopsis so you know what the hell I'm talking about, the whole Macross story relies on an alien ship that collided into Earth, and this ship is the size of like a small city in the futuristic year of 1999. I love when we actually get to the years that are supposed to be the future in movies, like Terminator and Back to the Future. And then by 2009, they've made modifications on this ship, upgraded their weapons. They've essentially jumped forward technologically using this ship. And it calls world peace because humanity was like, oh shit, there's aliens, we have to unite. Which is a pretty common theme in sci-fi from books I've read. I sort of believe it, sort of don't, just because there's always some fucking asshole. So the Macross ship has taken tens of thousands of people away from Earth, including our main characters, Hikaru, Ichijio, and Lin Minmei. Finally, a name that I can pronounce. They encounter this species called the Zentradi, which is all male, and they've realized that the Zentradi are fighting the all-female version of the aliens called the Meltrandi. And essentially they're humanoid giants, but they still look pretty alien in the movie. In the show, at least to the part that I'm at, they were just kind of like giant humans. And luckily for humans, our pop star Minmei is a singer, and singing is the weakness of the aliens. Eventually, Hikaru and Misa get away from the ship and get stuck on a desolate planet, which they quickly find out is Earth. And they find computer systems and this big giant alien artifact that has the proto-culture. And this is where you find out that the alien giants were created by humans to fight and then essentially destroy the creators and the Earth, and then became a spacefaring group based on sexism where the men hate the women. Eventually the humans form a peace treaty with the Zentradi, which are the males, but they back out of it and attack the humans. Minmei, who had her heart broken by our main boy Hikaru because he left her for Misa when they were alone on Earth. Hikaru is still able to convince her to sing, and this is what fucks the aliens over. Sadly, for Minmei, she has to sing a translated song by Misa, Hikaru's new girl, and this song unites the males and females against the main bad guy, Badol Zur, I guess is how you say it. Badole Zur. I don't know. It sounds like he has pronouns. Anyway, he didn't want to work anything out with the humans because he kind of connects the dots that human culture is related to the aliens, so he wants to destroy them. But because the men and women teamed up, he gets defeated. And we get to see Minmei end with a little dance number and song. And yeah, that sounds like a fucking wild plot, but I dug it. I thought it was kind of epic in the over-the-top 80s way where stuff wasn't afraid to be a little bit odd or a little bit weird. Like, I liked the Japanese pop music with the anime action. I also enjoy the much older anime style. I feel like the characters actually look more human. If they could close the gap between their eyes by like an inch, I think I would just say it's a superior style overall. I also like the music. It reminds me of video games if you played in like the Super Nintendo era, or depending on your age, if you watch the old Speed Racer anime. The kind of style and music reminds me of that as well. So there's a bit of nostalgic feel to it. And then there's just some stuff that you would never fucking see now. So Hikaru's superior, Roy Fokker, is talking to him about how to get women. And he pretty much just says you had to be the aggressor. That's what women want. And he just shoves his tongue down this chick's throat. And the movie portrays that as kind of just true, it seems like. because she does seem to be into Roy. So it is interesting always to see the older stuff and how dating and romance are portrayed. And I don't know how rampant sexism is in Japan or was during this era. I'm assuming it's better now just because. But they openly have guys just say, I'm not listening to you because you're a woman. They obviously have the stuff with Roy saying that women want to be pursued and men should just be aggressive and not quite don't take no for an answer, but he's working on it. And sort of the big revelation between the aliens is they can't even conceptualize male humans interacting with female humans. They call them microhumans because they literally only fight each other and they just hate each other, which is obviously a pretty direct message. And then even in the end, they say when the men and women work together, they accomplished a lot more. And to be fair, even though I said that the movie portrays Roy as kind of not necessarily wrong, he does die and sacrifice himself for the group. So I do think it's kind of an interesting thing there where he's doing the noble sacrifice that's expected of men, but then he's also kind of an asshole, at least by our standards today. He would certainly be portrayed as probably like a fucking rapist. I would just say he's a bit of a dick. Something that I find to be an interesting theme for Japanese stuff, and I would say even in modern anime, it still seems to be a pretty common thing, is it promotes liberalism or individualism. I mean, even the shit with Roy and the black chick, you could say is progressive for the time and, you know, obviously promoting interracial dating. But it promotes individualism while also seeming to be sort of into biological determinism. Like the scene on screen right now where Misa and Hikaru are alone on Earth, the whole thing's been destroyed. It's kind of got like the happy music playing while she finds the old dishes and is kind of preparing dinner and taking care of the house. But it's her choice. Like he just went out to wander around and that's what she wanted to do, which I find to be interesting because I sort of agree with that worldview that's promoted. I mean, not quite to the degree that they put it in anime or rom-coms or whatever, but more broadly speaking, the idea that people should have freedom to do what they want, but what most people want is going to fall into sort of stereotypes that are largely determined by biology. And I think that acknowledgement is probably a good thing overall, that men on average will be happier providing for a family and women on average will be happier taking care of a family and not necessarily having to work and sit in a cubicle all day and all that type of shit. Or in this case, go to war. But at the same time, just because most people or the average or whatever gravitate towards something doesn't mean the minority should be shamed. And it's interesting to see that kind of message in a movie that's over 40 years old. And it's still pretty prominent, I would say, in a lot of anime today, where you'll see a female character who wants a career and to be successful, but also likes cooking for the guy in the show. Or the guy might open up to the girl in a way that's a little bit more sensitive, but he also wants to be a man and stick up for his woman in certain situations and take care of her. And I sort of do agree with the underlying world building of the movie that it would take some kind of outside force to unite humanity. Certainly in any kind of quick fashion, we would need a common enemy, and it'd pretty much have to be aliens. Otherwise, humans are still going to fight. And even then, if you're in the Western world, you can already picture the people saying that we need to be nice to the aliens that are trying to fucking nuke us from orbit. Like, factions will form when you have a certain amount of people. That's just the nature of it. But the idea that we need an outside force like aliens to get us to unite, I am certainly on board with. And then there's obviously the message of man's reach exceeding his grasp and all that, where we develop things that we can't control. We make things beyond our own power with enough sentience to be destructive. Super relevant today, obviously, given AI. This movie has that in giant robot form, spaceship form, alien form, things that are all way more dangerous to humans than we already are. But that's a pretty prominent part of the world building. And I think it does serve to function as a warning just as much as a movie like Terminator does, or in some ways like Alien, that there is a certain point where you shouldn't fuck around. Obviously, you would think the 2020 pandemic and all that would slow us down, but I highly fucking doubt it. Instead of biological shit we're messing with, it's just AI. And let's be honest, it was already both. We just lost control of the biological shit first. Thanks, China. And the last thing I want to talk about with the movie that I think is interesting is just the idea of an established culture being the key to victory. And they say this outright in the movie also. This isn't some reading into it. They use the term the strength of culture after Min-Mei sings her pop song, and that's what weakens the main bad guy, whose name I already fucking butchered. The idea that culture is important obviously is not surprising coming from Japanese media. You see it built into every anime show. I would imagine it's built into their country. I've heard that on subways and things, it's very commonplace for everyone just to sit there in silence and read. No one bother anybody. Crazy how different just a train ride can be due to culture. Obviously here, train rides are super social. People were fucking loud, begging, fighting, whatever the fuck else, drugs. And the movie outright states that it believes that that kind of coherent, singular culture is important. And obviously, with Japan having super low immigration rates that they allow, very homogenous racially and culturally, no surprise there that this message would be in there over 40 years ago. I guess you could make the argument that it's saying that Japan needs to branch out since this is a global force fighting the aliens and the global force is united, but given the era, I'm skeptical of that and just Japan's general isolationism overall. And I will say it cheats a bit with the love story because essentially what it does is it isolates Hikaru and Minmay for a few days together, so then they're attracted, and then it isolates Hikaru and Misa on Earth, so then they become attracted to each other. I believe people call that the suspension bridge effect, but it's not even as unrealistic necessarily as much as just kind of a quick cheating way to make people fall in love with each other. Like, oh, you're stuck with no one else in a desperate situation. But yeah, overall, really fun movie, a lot going on. I'm definitely interested in the show, even though it sounds like from what I was told and seen online that they scraped in some other series called Robotech, and then there's been like a bunch of Macross spin-offs and reboots and specials and OVAs and shit, kind of redoing stuff. I don't know. But I'd at least be interested in the original series. Just the original 36 episodes. This was definitely a fun one that hit all the anime tropes in one movie, which is pretty impressive. Of course, it could also be responsible for creating those tropes to begin with. I don't actually know. I enjoyed the old music, the old animation. I just thought it was a lot of fun overall. Good choice from Jay. I'm going to leave it there for this one. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. I try to respond in the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.